We looked into this, obviously we became suspicious when we saw the two different usernames in the first place. We looked into it, we contacted them both, and we asked the simple question that Andy referred to before: did you take this photo? It's amazing how powerful that question is, because if you don't work this every day, you'll be astonished how often people will give you permission to use content that they don't have any right to give you permission to use. Photos they didn't take, video they didn't shoot. The classic example comes from outside of social, where somebody gives you a picture of a relative for a story, and it turns out it was taken by a photo studio. They don't have a right to do that. The photo studio owns that picture. And it happens in social all the time as well. The key thing here is that it's not their job to know the rules of the game. These are just people taking pictures and putting them on Twitter, which they're fully free to do. It's our job as journalists to understand the rules of the game, make sure they understand them, and to a certain extent, I think we have a responsibility to educate the public broadly, but also on a case-by-case basis, make sure they understand what they're getting into, because they just don't know what they're getting into, and it's not their job to know.
And often they're not intentionally taking someone else's images and put them out on social media. They downloaded it and re-uploaded it, or they took a screenshot of something. They're not trying to be misleading. Well, sometimes they are, but often cases just they're interacting like people do on social media, and then we have to be the ones to untangle that web. I think it's even more an issue on Facebook. Especially when you're trying to find Facebook images of people who've been involved in a big story or someone who's deceased. The images on their page, even if someone there can give you permission, almost every image that you see of someone on Facebook was taken by someone else. They're there because they're tagged in it, and it's an important thing to ask when we're getting in there. The ownership question is much more difficult on Facebook because you don't know where it originally came from, and it could be from a professional photographer, it could be from a studio, it could be something that their parent took. But you never really know about that, so it makes it even harder to get down to that question of who took this image, who has the right to give these user rights away. It's a sticky question.
Yeah, and I would say in my experience, the vast majority of times when there's a question about rights, it's almost always because somebody doesn't understand the rules. It's very rarely because someone's trying to deceive us. Sometimes accuracy issues could have to do with intentional hoaxes, obviously, but on rights issues, it's usually because they just don't understand.
It's something sorry.
So what ended up happening in this case is we contacted both of them. We reached out to both of them. I guess I haven't even said the punchline yet. Neither one of them took this picture. It turned out it was taken by somebody who didn't post it anywhere. One of these two people got it, I think, because it was texted to them by a friend who was the one who took it. So we got the phone number of the actual shooter of the photo. And going back to this notion of if you treat people right, you're going to get more back from them. He ended up sharing with us tons and tons of photos that he took there that he didn't post anywhere that ended up being very valuable for our